So this is going to be a bit of a different kind of video for you guys because it's sort of a trailer review and it's sort of a rant about the opinion of this upcoming film. Basically, let me tell you about a little story, true story. Last week, before I went camping for the weekend, I went on a site that I frequently go to called comingsoon.net, which is a website that has great entertainment news, postings of trailers, casting information, stuff like that. And I had heard about this one movie that was rumored to be made, or rumored to be in production. And people told me about it, wondered what I thought about it, and basically I couldn't believe that it was actually true. So it's kind of like, well, what am I supposed to say if I feel about something that I don't think is going to actually happen? Well, it is in production. In fact, it's near the end of production because it's going to be hitting theaters this August. Basically, if you don't know already, I absolutely frigging hate the works of two men, Jason Freeberg and Aaron Seltzer. And if you haven't heard of them, you have most likely heard of their so-called spoof movies. I say spoof with emphasis because it is so ridiculously unfunny. Basically, their movies are the following. Date Movie, which was supposed to be parodying the dating genre of films. Epic Movie, which was supposed to be parodying the epic genre of films. Disaster Movie, which was supposed to be parodying the disaster genre of films. And Meet the Spartans, which frankly I don't know what the frig it was supposed to be making fun of, because it certainly wasn't 300. Yeah, if you haven't figured it out, I really hate these guys or I definitely hate their work. I'm really tempted not to hate these guys because this is all they do. They do the same endless so-called comedies that are supposed to be making fun of like these movies or these genres, and they're not funny. They're just friggin' references of stuff that has nothing to do with the movies they're making fun of, or the genres. What part does Borat play in an epic movie? What part does Britney Spears have to play in a 300 parody? What part does Sex and the City have to do in a disaster movie? This is the crap that I have dealt with for years, and we're all friggin' sick and tired of it. So getting to the case in point, the movie that they're making fun of now is Twilight, or rather, the vampire genre of films. Yeah, now we're making fun of Twilight. You could not have just let it go. You had to make another one. Disaster Movie, their latest one, and the one that I have hated the most, it was on number 1 of the bottom 100 films of IMDb.com. It was on there for a little while, but think of that for a moment. Number 1 of the worst 100 films in cinema history. And you said, let's let these guys make another one. Studio executives of Hollywood, I ask this in all seriousness. Are you high, stupid, or friggin' incompetent? I don't know what to do anymore. I really don't. There's no amount of protesting that we are going to be able to do to make these guys stop making films. There's not enough boycotting in the world that is going to make them stop. Hollywood is literally wasting their money. They are pretty much putting their friggin' $100 bills into blenders and watching it spin around and shred itself. I cannot believe that anyone in their right mind would give these guys the permission or money to make another one of these stupid films. And I'm friggin' sick and tired of it. This video that you're watching right now, me friggin' flipping out. I did this is probably my 3rd or 4th one, because the only reason I'm doing another version of this is because the other ones, I was friggin' cussing at the microphone. That is how ticked off I was about this thing. So I had to, suck it up, do another one, because I didn't want to give the friggin' filmmakers the satisfaction that they ticked me off this far. They have ticked me off pretty well, I can admit that, but I'm not going to give them the satisfaction of hearing me cuss because they've ticked me off that far. Basically, I don't know what to... I watched the trailer for this thing, and I'm going to have it in front of me right now, the video of the trailer, and I'm going to be listening to it with the headphones on, so I'm just going to tell you what I'm seeing because I cannot believe the amount of crap that I saw in like a minute, friggin' 2 minutes. So it starts off with, this summer, the most extraordinary story of our generation. And now we have the chick from Mad TV playing, I forget the name of the mom vampire in Twilight, but she's playing her. Which is showing that once again, Jason Freeberg and Aaron Seltzer are grabbing the people from Mad TV and thinking that they're going to be able to save their frigging stupid I can't take it anymore! Sorry, their friggin' spoof franchise. This is how ticked off this movies are making me. I can barely finish a frigging sentence. Okay, so now we're parodying the scene of where Bella Swan is in it's the new moon scene where she gets the thing open, she gets the paper cut, and Jasper's leaping at her. So basically, this is what happens. Jasper sees Bella's head as a Big Mac. A Big Mac! I leave that to your own interpretation. Yes, and now the tagline is, "This bites the big one." And he puts on a bib and has a fork and knife, he's charging at her. And yeah, this is stupid. Oh yes, this man comes to the door saying, "Did somebody order Chinese food?" And really what they mean is, they meant that guy to come to their house so they could eat the Chinese guy. Ha, ha, ha. And I think there's tanning beds in the background. I have no idea what the frig's going on, but from what I can only guess is that it's supposed to be a parody of Final Destination 3. I have no idea. I really don't care. Basically, now they're eating the guy. From the guys who couldn't sit through another vampire movie. From the guys who couldn't friggin' find a way not to tick you off. Oh yes, now they're putting in a ridiculously useless Alice in Wonderland cameo. Just for the sake of friggin' shooting her. What was the point of that? What was the point of that? Oh yeah, Bella is here. She's saying, like, who are they? And she's pointing out to these people across the lunchroom of the high school. I forget their names. I think they said Snooky, JWoww. I don't know who these people are. Maybe I'm living under a rock. I really don't know. I don't care. But I don't... Just putting them in there. How is that funny? That's like saying, "Oh, hi there, Michael Jackson." And that's it. There's no pun. There's no joke. That's it. This is what these people do. Oh, the Jersey Shore. I'm sorry. Forgive me, I don't know what the Jersey Shore is. Oh yeah, now we have a Lady Gaga reference. Wow, it's a man playing her, I can only guess, judging by the facial structure of this actor or actress. You kinda did that in Disaster Movie with friggin' Sarah Jessica Parker's character from Sex and the City. And you know what I noticed about that? It wasn't funny. So why would you put it in here? Oh yeah, and I think the RO guy, Michael Sheen, played him in New Moon, is played by a Chinese guy here. Oh, and now we have Jacob and the Werewolves, and it's gay jokes. No, I'm skipping a bit through this. I'm sorry. Oh yes, I have a contract that says I have to take my shirt off every 10 minutes of screen time. That's Jacob's line. Why would these... Okay, the friggin' 3 vampires from the Twilight movies, they're like, "Are you the Black Eyed Peas?" They don't look at all like the Black Eyed Peas! I don't believe this anymore. You know what? I cannot take it anymore. I'm sick and tired of this crap. I would say boycott it. I would say burn the friggin' theaters down if you have to. But it's not going to stop these idiots. They're still going to be making it. All I have to say is the following. Jason Friedberg and Aaron Seltzer, you're not funny. Go to friggin' film school. Disaster movie. A film I swore I would never watch in my life, ever. I knew it was going to be terrible. Unfortunately, I decided it was best to watch the worst of the worst if I was going to survive through the rest of these terrible movies. This movie taught me a very valuable lesson. The importance of paint drying. People, if you have a choice between watching the next parody movie by Jason Friedberg and Aaron Seltzer, you will have more an amusing time in witnessing the miraculous process of drying paint. This movie is that bad. This movie was supposed to be a comedy, right? So why is it that most of the film I spent without laughing? The times I actually did laugh was when the movie went to such bounds that it was so fundamentally stupid, the only thing you could feel is like you've had the last piece of sanity kicked out of your mind. In a film called Disaster Movie, the thing you'd expect the filmmakers to pay attention to is stuff like tornadoes, lightning, or even so much as the wind blowing. Nope. Apparently the thing that people really paid their money for was the latest jab at stuff like Hannah Montana, High School Musical, or Facebook. Not to mention when this movie came out, it was either before or shortly after the premieres of some of the movies it's making fun of. So what? You're making fun of the movie's trailers? If I wanted that, I'd go check out the guys from Evil Iguana Productions. Those guys are actually good at making fun of films and trailers. It's almost as if the makers of this movie said to themselves, wait a minute, what are we supposed to be making fun of again? Something to do with the rain? Oh well, let's just grab that guy who looks like Prince Caspian and chunk him onto the screen when it's the most useless time. This is why I can hardly tell these movies apart. Date movie, epic movie, Meet the Spartans. They are all the same thing. They make fun of more stuff like the latest internet phenomenon or the newest Jonas Brothers song than what they're supposed to be parodying. Imagine, if you will, that I'm supposed to make a speech on the Great Wall of China. Instead, I spend an hour talking about how I think Jack Sparrow is funny, or the newest ringtone on my cell phone. Occasionally I might talk about a wall, or even something related to Asia, but I'm talking more about crap that is totally unrelated to what I'm supposed to be discussing. That is what Disaster Movie is. And these jokes are horrible, to say the least. They're not funny, and there's hardly any effort put into them. It's just the same pop culture references over and over again. Sure, the movie has the occasional time where it tries to do something original, but it's not funny either. Here's what I don't understand. They've got some of the guys from Mad TV. These guys are professional comedians. The show's actually funny, though maybe not the funniest thing in the world anymore. So why are they not funny? The movie is completely random. There's no thought put into it at all, and if there's a plot, it practically has one finger hanging off the edge of a cliff. By the end of the film, it has plummeted into a disgrace of cinematic potential. I could spend anywhere from 8 minutes to an entire day explaining to you how crappy this movie is, but I'm not going to. I want to finish this review, edit it together, grab the pictures as fast as I can, and upload it. If you're making a comedy and the only thing that's making me laugh is how pathetic it is, you have failed entirely. I'm giving Disaster Movie a 0 out of 10 and hope that on the way out of the house, a brick will hit me on the head and give me amnesia from this nauseating experience.
Since the dawn of time, man's been wondering how to answer this question, and I think that today we're going to try and get some answers. So, why do chick flicks suck? I am not saying that I hate all chick flicks or anything like that. And for one thing, you have to really figure out how to define what is a chick flick. What I'm saying is, today's chick flicks, or what we would call a chick flick, us being guys, why do we hate them? That's a basic question. I think the reason that a lot of guys hate them, I'm going to say first of all why guys hate them and then why critics hate them. I think the reason that most guys hate them is because they're so sappy. It's all about, claiming to define what love is when, it's just the same rehashed stuff, just put into different words. And guys, frankly, get sick of it. They see girls going on shopping sprees 10,000 times in movies. The reason that guys don't like chick flicks is because it's just the same. They find that it's just the same stuff over and over again, just done in different circumstances. For instance, Princess Diaries 2. It was bad enough watching Princess Diaries. I had to watch the second one. There's this bachelorette party for, the Princess of Genovia, and what are we doing? We're riding on mattresses and drinking juice boxes with a bunch of 14-year-olds. I'm not kidding. It's basically this sugar and spice type plot and screenplay where they just think that if we make everything so sweet and glossy and pink and colorful that it'll get girls wanting to go see it. Now here's the reason that critics, I think, don't like chick flicks these days. Because it's all about the romantic leads. Now, that sounds pretty obvious when it comes to a romance movie. But think about that for a moment. In a lot of romance movies these days, let's talk about a few. A Walk to Remember, Lake House, definitely maybe. They're focusing specifically on the main couple. Now, when you're thinking of a casting process, the casting process happens after the script has been written. Now, you can write a script thinking it would be great if the main character was played by actor X, or the main love interest was played by actress Y. That's completely fine. But you can absolutely tell with a lot of movies these days that it's specifically written so that this specific actor or actress can be put opposite of each other, and then they just make the magic happen. And I think that is a terrible idea. It's going to destroy your film. Because if you're going to basically say, I'm writing this so I can see Zac Efron, and what was that? There was some movie I saw a trailer of, because I saw The Vow with a couple of friends of mine the other day. It was a decent, kind of chick flick. But the thing is, you can tell that what was based on a true story was very Hollywoodized. You can tell that it's being very much focusing specifically on seeing Channing Tatum and Rachel McAdams make the magic happen. That, they're focusing specifically on these two romantic leads. Now, once again, I'm not saying that, if you don't focus on your romantic leads, then you obviously don't have a romance movie. But that's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying is the reason that these romance movies fail. What I'm saying is the best romantic movies are the ones where they don't mainly focus on the romance itself. Because if you do that, then all you've got is a movie about two people and love. Well, that's great for, the 20 people in the audience. There's a lot more people going around in this story than just boyfriend and girlfriend or the husband and wife. Here are some of the best romantic movies I've ever seen. Titanic, Slumdog Millionaire, Shakespeare in Love. Now with that last one, don't let the title fool you. Because those three examples, there's romance. There's great romance in the movies. but the romance is not, you can argue this, I'm not going to say you can't argue this, but in my perspective, the romance is not the only thing. Or it's not the main thing. It's definitely not the only thing, but it's not the main focus of the film. Plenty of stuff that's happening. The problem that I see with romance movies these days is they make it look like they're going for subplots. Like, say, in The Vow, they had this subplot of the wife who had amnesia, her sister is getting married. All they do is show a variety of scenes that's leading up to the wedding. That's not a subplot. That's just showing stuff. There's a difference between focusing on stuff and just saying, oh yeah, that's happening in the background. The reason that the whole rom-com, romantic comedy genre, I think, has taken off so much is because Hollywood realizes that romantic movies just don't cut it. If you just make a romantic movie, if you make the romance swell up and all that stuff, and all of it being about true love and all that stuff, then you're bound to fail. The movie cannot support itself on just being about the romance. That's why romantic comedies were brought in, because the comedy helps soften the blow. If you focus specifically on why these people are in love, instead of just showing it, and it comes all the way back to show, don't tell, but if you focus specifically on the couple, and like if you focus 80% on the couple, and 20% or less, and there's plenty of times where I see less, on everything else that's going on, then you're going to bore the audience to tears. Like, I hope that scriptwriters realize that movies are supposed to be this means of escape for audience members where you take them on this entertaining ride away from their boring, repetitive, mundane lives, and you show them exciting drama and stories. You're trying to make it as relatable, slightly relatable, but mostly as unrelatable as possible by showing them this different realm where things happen that don't normally happen in regular life. So if you say, basically in a nutshell, my movie's about two people who like each other, but they just won't admit it, then are you really going to follow up that sentence with, how many tickets do you want to buy? Why should I go see something that I could be watching my best friend and his girlfriend bickering about on the big screen when I can watch them bicker about it in their living room? And this is what happens in romance movies all the time. They've run out of ideas, so they're just doing stuff that is so relatable that there's no reason to make a movie about it. And the other thing that I'm noticing a lot with romance movies these days, specifically with what we would call chick flicks, is that they're focusing, as I was saying before, they're focusing so much on who they're going to get as the main leads that they don't care about anything else. They pick these actors and actresses it's literally like, remember in high school when you'd have your friends do those random matchups to see, like, your cousin, what it would look like if your cousin married your ex-boyfriend's mother or something like that? It's like that's how Hollywood is thinking of how to match up different actors and actresses. Because they just think, what couple have we not used yet? How about Rachel McAdams and Seth MacFarlane? Or Jessica Alba and Jonah Hill? You see what I'm saying? Like, they think that just because whoever's hot at the time, let's put the hot A and hot B together and that's going to make our movie for us. If that is the forefront of your mind in the script writing, the casting process, your movie's going to suck. Because you're thinking way too far ahead. You're not thinking of how to flesh out your script. You're thinking about how many people are going to go see this to see Justin Timberlake with his shirt off. It's this whole issue of basically just not exploring the things that really matter. I'm going to take one last example. The Lake House. You've got a mailbox that breaks the time-space continuum. Movies have been made revolving around that. Movie series have been made revolving around that. And what are you focusing on? Keanu Reeves' life is about moping at his lake house. Sandra Bullock's life is about moping at her lake house. They happen to live at the same lake house, but just 2 years apart. Yeah, and there's a wormhole in your frigging mailbox! But Sandra Bullock and Keanu Reeves are so lovely together. Wormhole in your mailbox! I rest my case.
You know, I may just do film and trailer reviews, but I think it's equally as important to try and ask questions regarding the film industry and see what answers we can find together. So that's why I've decided to bring in this new segment for the channel called The Film Industry Question. Today's question is, are film trailers beginning to spoil too much? I think everybody knows what a trailer's purpose is. It's a collaboration of shots of an upcoming film that's put into advertisements to draw in the attention for an eventual audience. As you might have guessed already, I love watching trailers. I love the music, the suspense, and sometimes a good laugh or two they can give the viewer. But the main reason I and a lot of other people like trailers is because we enjoy the feeling of mystery that comes with it. Seeing all these different shots and wondering how they're all going to connect together. So this brings us to the rising topic. I've come to notice recently that a lot of trailers seem to be putting scenes in them that, in my opinion, look like they're giving away way too much detail before the movie hits the theaters. A couple months ago, I heard about a film coming out called Love Happens, starring Jennifer Aniston and Aaron Eckhart. The premise was pretty simple. A guy who coped with his wife's death by writing self-help books came to a city while his book is on tour and met a florist who starts to fall in love with him. He also deals with issues from his father-in-law who thinks he needs to stop lying to himself. I saw the trailer and thought it was going to be a decent film, but then I saw two scenes that abruptly stood out in my mind. Towards the end of the trailer, the widower confronts the florist and confesses that he never did any of the things he said he did in his book. Now first off, let me remind you that this is just speculation, and I haven't seen the movie. But think about this. Most scenes in a trailer are organized in chronological order. Would they make sense if they weren't? And this scene arrives shortly before the classic trailer's blink and you'll miss it scene's finale, implying that this will arrive later on in the film. Now this scene could appear anywhere in the movie. But when a film is trying to make this man look like someone who's gotten through his troubles and all of a sudden he reveals it was all a lie, doesn't that seem like something you'd want to save for the end? And there's even a scene in the trailer where the widower's bitter father-in-law is seen hugging him in tears in front of a large audience. Now I ask you again, doesn't that seem like something you would have at the end of a story arc? If I'm in the movie theater watching the previews and see a trailer, I might say, wow, that looks like it's going to be really dramatic. I gotta check it out. The film just might have one more person go see it. But if they throw in a scene that says something like, I've decided to leave you for your mother. The end. Would I still want to go see the film after that? No, I wouldn't, because I just saw the ending. But let's move on to another example. Leap Year, starring Amy Adams and Matthew Good. The premise involves a woman who's been waiting for her boyfriend to propose to her, but he's never gotten the backbone to do it. So she hears about an Irish legend that says a woman can propose to a man in Ireland on a leap day, and they have to accept it. But on her way to see her boyfriend, she hitches a ride with an innkeeper, and the two start to get to know each other more and more until they realize they're falling in love. So yeah, the story looks about as corny as it can get. But at the end of the trailer, after they've been through all this stuff together, her boyfriend proposes to her right in front of the innkeeper, and she stands in shock. Now this could have been a lot worse. She could have said yes or no before the trailer faded to black. But really, it was obvious she was going to have to decide between these two guys. Wouldn't you rather see something like that when you saw the actual movie and then say, wow, I didn't see that coming? As you may have noticed, these films are primarily grouping around the romance genre. So let's move on to something else, The Incredible Hulk. Okay, so the trailer didn't give anything major away, but it pretty much laid out the entire structure of the story. The trailer showed that Bruce Banner would start out in Brazil, run into the military as the Hulk when he got back to America, and a soldier named Blonsky would inject himself with a serum and transform into the Abomination to battle the Hulk. And just how did the story play out? Bruce Banner started out in Brazil, ran into the military as the Hulk in America, a soldier named Blonsky injected himself with a serum and transformed into the Abomination to battle the Hulk. Well, surprise, surprise! Plus, as you may have noticed in the first trailer, they not only showed us the new design for the Hulk, but the design for the Abomination. If the villain's only gonna show up for 10 minutes at the end of the movie, why don't you just show us quick shots of him to make the audience want to see the movie and get a good look at the thing? But let's move on to the final example, Letters to Juliet. This one seems to have the most original premise. A girl goes to Italy where she finds out that a woman had walked away from her long-lost love and wished she could see him again. So the girl goes with the woman and her grandson to search around Italy for this man while realizing she might have feelings for the grandson while she's having troubles with her boyfriend. The big question for the movie is, will the woman ever find the man, or is he even still alive? It's a good conflict, and I thought this movie looked like it was offering something unique. But no, one of the last scenes shows the old woman meeting an elderly man on horseback who is obviously the man she's been looking for. So she at least found the guy, but will he ever be able to forgive her for what she did to him? Well, I guess we'll never know. Oh, wait a minute! The trailer then shows the grandson and dozens of other people at the home of the man where everybody is wearing tuxedos and expensive clothes to the point where you'd have to slap yourself upside the head if you didn't realize it was somebody's wedding. Is Hollywood intentionally trying to get people to stop watching their movies? Is it to the point where we should just hear about a movie online, look at a photo or two, and then decide if it's worth watching? Well, this is my response. Out of all these movies, I've only seen The Incredible Hulk. But it seems like that movie really didn't offer much else than the trailer had already shown. It was a decent film, but unless you've seen the trailer, you can figure out how it's all gonna run. It may be that filmmakers are realizing that they don't have enough tension in the movies themselves, so when the trailers get made, they run out of ideas and throw these kinds of scenes in. But what they don't seem to realize is the movie has to look pretty frickin' good if people are willing to see it even after you've spoiled all the juicy stuff. Films like Love Happens and Leap Year feel too cliche, whereas films like Letters to Juliet look like they're offering something new and exciting. So if you're listening, Hollywood, please don't dig your own financial grave. Are you really gonna spend all this money on making movies and then start pushing potential audience members away? Who's handling the promotional material these days? Gimme high five. No, no, no. Put your hand down. Not that kind of high five. A top five. As in the highest 5 chameleon actors in the Hollywood film industry. For me, a true chameleon actor is someone who can go from one personality to the next. Someone who can play the role of a timid individual and then pull a total 180 and become a furious psychopath. Now, a lot of actors in Hollywood have been able to do that, but really, there's only a handful that are able to do it all the time. So here we have it, the high 5 chameleon actors. Number 5 goes to Helena Bonham Carter. This lady has got to be one of the coolest women in modern Hollywood. She's most famous for her more eccentric roles like Bellatrix Lestrange in Harry Potter and Mrs. Lovett in Sweeney Todd. But almost every role she's done before, after, and between just stands out in all of our minds. Helena's roles seem to favor a bit more of the bizarre side, as you can guess. But the great thing about it is, where most people would start to act the same in those kinds of worlds, she's able to pull off a different face with each one. But that isn't to say she can't make a lot of other roles feel totally serious. As much as the remake of Planet of the Apes sucked, Helena was able to embody the character of Ari amazingly. I don't think anyone could have played the character better than her. My only criticism is that when she takes ordinary roles, her characters start to lose the charm she usually carries. Sometimes they start to feel the same, but when she steps into strange or abnormal roles, she takes the cake. Number 4 goes to Jim Carrey. Now I bet you're probably thinking right now, he's not an actor, he's a comedian. Well, generally I've had the long debate over whether comedians can actually be actors, but Jim Carrey is absolutely both. Jim is a man who I'm proud to say was born a Canadian, who is a personality that is just all over the place. He has one of the most flexible minds ever, and can take on anything and make it hilarious. These days, it's very rare to see Jim in some of his wilder roles, but when he does it, it's fantastic. Even if you put Jim Carrey in a dull movie, he makes it worth watching. For instance, Count Olaf and Series of Unfortunate Events. Not that great a film, but boy did he make Olaf a deceiving, wild conundrum. If you ever want to watch the best of Jim Carrey, watch films like The Mask, Batman Forever, The Grinch, or Me, Myself, and Irene. In that last one, he's literally playing two characters in one body. Yeah, it's nothing Oscar-worthy, but it's a role where you're literally turning someone who's probably never hit a person in their life into a man who would chuck a kitten across a room. Sometimes when Jim does serious roles they work, and other times they don't. But that isn't to say he's a terrible actor when it comes to emotion. In The Truman Show, he's still got that kind of humor, but he's still a man you can feel for. Number 3 goes to Robert Downey Jr. Robert Downey Jr. was a name that kind of faded during the Hollywood 90s, but was nominated for an Academy Award for Best Actor in his role of Charlie Chaplin. When you think about it, how many people can actually pull that guy off? It wasn't until 2008 that Robert Downey Jr. seemed to return to the big leagues with his role as Tony Stark in the film Iron Man. When I saw this guy, I had never heard of him, and I thought to myself, well, he looks like Tony Stark, but can he play the role right? You bet your freaking butt he played the role right. Robert Downey Jr. was able to turn a spoiled rich boy with nothing but women, and women on his mind into someone totally committed to making a difference. Every word he said was something I felt Tony Stark would say. He was sarcastic, charming, and just the guy who was the life of a party. Now we come to a role that everybody was talking about post Iron Man. Kirk Lazarus in the comedy Tropic Thunder. And boy did this guy rock the screen. In the film, Robert Downey Jr. isn't just playing the role of an Australian actor, he's playing an Australian actor who's playing an African American soldier. And he was incredible as both of them. This film was a comedy undoubtedly, and Robert Downey Jr. didn't have to play the roles as well as he did, but he did anyway. Apparently, he was actually so committed to this role that just like Kirk Lazarus, he didn't even break character between takes. Every face that Robert pulled off in this movie was sensational, something to be remembered. Everybody had big controversy about his role, but by the end, everybody seemed to love it. The most ironic part is, here is Robert Downey Jr. playing an Academy Award-winning actor, and later, Robert Downey Jr. is nominated for an Academy Award for playing an Academy Award-winning actor. Robert Downey Jr. has incredible talent and will be a name to be remembered through all of Hollywood. Number 2 goes to Johnny Depp. Because really, this guy seems to be the face of Hollywood. Much like Helena Bonham Carter, Johnny Depp has been known to do his eccentric roles and do a lot of Tim Burton work. But everything he does is unique. Johnny's debut into movies was with the first Nightmare on Elm Street film, and his name has been a mosaic of roles ever since. Today, he's primarily known as Captain Jack Sparrow, but before and after that, he's been a man of 1,000 personalities. Johnny Depp is a method actor, and that's exactly why he's able to perform so well in his roles. In the film Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, Johnny prepared for the role of Raoul Duke by not only becoming friends with the character's creator, Hunter S. Thompson, but by actually switching cars with him. For every role that Johnny does, he's always able to find a way to get into that character's mind. And of course, every girl in the world is absolutely gaga for him, which is probably the reason he has fans from almost every age group and from both genders. The guys love him for his twisted roles in acting, and the girls love him for... Well, ladies, tell me you aren't tempted to kiss the screen right now. Johnny is one of those guys who can go from the mundane to the insane lickety-split. He's been Sweeney Todd, James Matthew Barry, John Dillinger, Willy Wonka, Ichabod Crane, even Ed Wood, who has been called the worst filmmaker of all time, and he was able to make him worth watching. All these roles are almost totally different from the other, and Johnny's the kind of guy who succeeds at all of them. There will never be enough work for Johnny Depp. So now I bet you're asking, who on earth could be better than Johnny Depp? Number 1 goes to Gary Oldman. Wait a second. Something's missing. Ah, there we go. No, something's still missing. Wait a minute. I know. Gary Oldman. Gary Oldman. Gary Oldman. Gary Oldman. Gary Oldman. This guy continues to be one of my favorite actors of all time. And if you followed his work, you'll know why. Every single role he does is almost absolutely different from the other. I offer a challenge to the viewers of my videos. Name me one, just one role that Gary Oldman has played that he has been terrible at. It's pretty hard to think of one, huh? That's because Gary Oldman is just one of those guys who gets into the heads of a character in seconds. How does he do it? Well, that's the thing. Nobody knows. If you said to Gary Oldman, Gary, I want you to play Superman, you'd turn around for about 2 seconds, and when you'd turn back, he'd not only be playing Superman, but a convincing Clark Kent, Lex Luthor, Jimmy Olsen, and yes, even Lois Lane. Okay, so yeah, I'm exaggerating a little on that part. But here's something that I am downright serious about. This Christmas, Robert Zemeckis is premiering his film, A Christmas Carol, where Gary Oldman will be playing 3 roles through motion capture. The ghost of Jacob Marley, I already know that one's gonna be creepy. Bob Cratchit, and I am not even kidding here, Tiny Tim. Gary Oldman, a man in his early 50s, is going to play, but not voice, a little boy with a limp leg who Ebenezer Scrooge carries around on his shoulder like he's a parrot. After reading this online, instead of freaking out like I usually would at something like this, I said, it is official. Gary Oldman can play anyone. This guy has played Sid Vicious, Lee Harvey Oswald, Beethoven, Pontius Pilate, Dracula, Jim Gordon, and the list just goes on and on and on. Gary Oldman puts himself 100% into the minds of his characters, still break character between takes, though I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't, and never drop the ball. For years, I have been asking this question and demand to know the answer. Where the heck is this guy's Oscar? By now, he should own the flippin' Academy. Well, apparently Gary Oldman is actually a very private man in real life. Hey, if you were such a great actor, wouldn't you want a little time away from crazy fans? So it could be that even if he did get nominated for an Oscar, he might turn it down. I don't know, and frankly, I couldn't figure out this guy's thoughts if I tried. Why? Because he's Gary Oldman. So YouTube, there you have it. My high 5 favorite Chameleon actors.